Hello everybody, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and for today's video, we are going to be doing a full-on analysis of the upcoming second tier Battle Pass reward kind of ship that they've been doing each update here for the Battle Pass, which is HMS London, Tier 6 Heavy Cruiser. Now, HMS London is indeed a heavy cruiser. These are 203 millimeter guns packaged on a Tier 6 hull with a smoke screen. That's kind of the gimmick here. I know I've been featuring a lot of like smoke farming cruisers here, but this is like the first heavy cruiser one. So this is going to be interesting kind of take I could do for you guys. So hopefully you all enjoy this one. So right off the bat, first thing I could tell you about the London is that you give up a lot to get 203 millimeter guns that you can sit and smoke screen and farm. And I'll go into more detail about what I mean by saying that, but you do give up quite a bit of performance of your vessel and other parameters just to get the smoke screen. And just to clarify that these smoke screens you get on this ship, they are not the short burst smoke screens like you got in the Gambia or like the Daring kind of stuff. These are like your full-on smoke screens. I believe just like the UK typical ones with the 15-second time and dispersion of 99 seconds. These are just standard smoke screens that you get on a cruiser with I think a smoke firing penalty of 6.8 kilometers. You're gonna have to position your ship well and know where enemy DD subs, that sort of stuff is at all times in order to free farm. The thing with heavy cruisers and smoke farming, as they do tend to have higher smoke firing penalties, is positioning. You have to position your ship right. Also, let's be honest, heavy cruisers don't usually or at all handle as well as light cruisers. So sitting, going stop and starting in smoke screens are way more difficult and more likely to eat torpedoes. Yes, you get hydro, which you actually get the destroyer like the DD hydro with that 3 kilometer range. It's nice, but is it enough? So at the end of the day, you're going to have to position your ship well enough in smoke in order to counteract enemy torpedoes. That is going to be a massive threat to your ship. So, but anyways, that was kind of like my general impression of the ship. Let's go on, dig under the hood, kind of talk about some stats and talk a little about her. And then eventually we'll show some gameplay and I'll go over some tips and tricks that I have with the London to get the most out of her so that you can decide whether or not she is worth the 2,500 doubloon cost of the Battle Pass upcoming in update 14.4. Let me dismiss my commander, or sorry, send in a reserve real quick. All right, so first things first, we're going to go over the armor scheme. You have a 16 millimeter nose, you have a 16 millimeter ass with this like 25 millimeter deck plating, side plating of 25 millimeters, and this armor belt of 114 millimeters. You know, this ship is interesting in the fact that it has no armor for heavy cruiser, but then again, you shouldn't be surprised by this. We are down here at tier 6, relatively speaking, armor is more or less non-existent for cruisers as battleships just shit on them 24/7. Little bit side note here of the London. As you can see, the barbettes do come out and go down to, I guess, where the Citadel should be, but it's not there. So the Citadel is actually under the smokestack. So when you're firing at this ship, try to make sure you aim according to land your shells midship rather than under the front turrets. This has definitely gotten me once or twice. Not as bad as like the Boise or Helena kind of armor scheme arrangement with their Citadels, but yeah, this is definitely one of those ships you're going to want to aim midship either to square Citadel ribbons, because if you land your shells right under the front turrets or rear, you're going to be getting overpens most likely, especially if you're a battleship. So just a little bit of a side note for you guys out there. Now we're going to go on to some of the other stats here. Again, I'll probably be comparing her a lot to like the Devonshire, which is the tier 6 tech line Royal Navy cruiser, and then also the Pensacola as well. I think that's another good ship, heavy cruiser ship to compare her to. Just again, my opinion on her. Going to the survivability of the of the London, 34,600 with a measly 4% torpedo protection. Yeah, again, you don't want to be taking torpedoes, especially this is a smoke farming ship, so sitting in smoke again could be lethal to you, so you have to be careful and use caution at all times. To put that in perspective, on the other end of the coin, you have the Devonshire, who actually has a 16 millimeter torpedo protection, which is again a lot better. But in a cruiser, you don't want to be eating torpedoes. Period. Like that's just the fact of the matter. So don't be eating torpedoes. Moving to her artillery here, which are these 203 millimeter guns. She does have 4 turrets, 2 guns per turret, so 4 times 2, 203 millimeter guns. And I'm going to go ahead and show the firing angles up there. These firing angles are not good. In my opinion, they're not good. You're going to get better ones, I believe, if you're kiting away than going forward, obviously. But still, you're presenting a lot of broadside. Definitely punishable. If you see a London shooting all 4 turrets at you at a time, especially if you have, I mean, even if you have 152s at decent amount ranges, you can 100% Citadel this thing. But in any other ship, other than DDs, if the London is showing his rear 3 and 4 turret, absolutely shoot AP right into his Citadel, and you should be able to get Citadel ribbons, or on his side, sorry, get Citadel ribbons, because this thing, again, terrible firing angles, at least in my opinion. I didn't like them, did not feel comfortable, and especially how sluggish your ship is going to be maneuvering. Definitely easy to take advantage of. So with these 203 millimeter guns here for the London, you have a range of 14.5 kilometers with a reload of 14 seconds. Again, nothing new to heavy cruiser players down at this tier. You are sacrificing a lot in regards of your reload to get these 203 millimeter guns. 180 degree turn time is 22.5. This is identical to that of the Devonshire. And again, your dispersion of, I guess we go to what? Probably let's do 15 kilometers because it's around 14 and a half is your max range. You're looking at like 137 millimeter horizontal dispersion and about 83 meters of vertical dispersion. If I said millimeters, I'm sorry, I meant meters. Sigma is 2.0 standard. With your flight time going to target at that range is about 10.2 seconds. These are relatively floatier shells, at least in my opinion. We're not talking like Atlanta floatiness or light cruiser line floatiness, but these are floatier shells, so you're gonna have to lead accordingly, and you make sure that you obviously lead accordingly. You're gonna see that in the replay. I am taking lead, and there are times that I fucked up my salvo just because I forgot that these shells do tend to be on the floatier side. Going down to the high explosives on the shell on the ship, you do 2850 with maximum HE shell hit with a 17% fire chance, and you're going to be able to penetrate 34 millimeters of armor, which is that is awesome for a heavy cruiser. Well, awesome because 203s can do that with 34 millimeters of penetration as you have a higher gun caliber. HE shells feel super nice on this thing. In my opinion, the bread and butter of the London is going to be those HE shells. You're going to be firing those more in a ratio of like 70-30%, just because of a high fire chance. Again, this is nothing new to Royal Navy heavy cruiser players. The HE is definitely potent on these vessels, and you're definitely going to want to be using them for the majority of the time. Going to the armor piercing with 4550, I believe, is our AP maximum damage. And then going to her penetration capabilities at 15 kilometers, you're looking at 128 millimeters of penetration, which they can go ahead and overmatch 14 millimeters of effective armor. Okay, so one thing about the London's AP that we want to kind of write home to you guys. You're gonna see examples of this in the video too. The penetration is very lackluster on these 203 millimeter guns, especially we're talking max range. If we're looking at like the Devonshire, who doesn't even get 15 kilometers of range, it gets 14 kilometers of range. It would theoretically rake in 151 millimeters of penetration. So if we go at the Devonshire's max range, it's 158 millimeters of penetration. That's nice. And the Pensacola, 176 millimeters of penetration. So you kind of can see the tailing off of the AP. The AP on this ship is at close proximity. The AP is going to be a friend of yours, but at longer ranges, you cannot afford to switch to AP as you're going to be getting shatters, ricochets. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, to be shooting AP at your max gun range. Now, the one rule of thumb that I like to do with the London is with a full stealth build. I believe you can get this thing to like 10.3 or something like that, like rig it down. If you are under your ship's maximum detection range of 10.3 or lower, the armor piercing is worth running, because at 14 kilometers, the Pensacola had 176 millimeters of penetration. Well, now at 10 kilometers, the London has 176 millimeters of penetration. So if you're at your ship's maximum stealthy build, like max detection of 10 or whatever, with concealment upgrade, I might add, and lower, the armor piercing, I would use the AP. If you're anything above that, I would not recommend switching to armor piercing. That's going to be a decision that you're going to make based upon who's the target you're shooting at what ranges, how much AP and how much sight he's showing. Then it's your decision. But just a rule of thumb, I would not tap the 2 key unless I'm within within my concealment build or within my concealment number, right? So just again, a little side note. Take that with that you will, because it worked for me. So maybe it'll work for you. I don't know. Torpedoes, you have these 2x4 533 millimeter torpedo tubes. They turn 180 degrees in 6 seconds. They reload in about 106 seconds. Maximum range is 7 kilometers. Maximum damage is 15,733 with a speed of 59 knots with a detectability range of 1.2. Yeah, I mean, 7 kilometers is meh. I mean, again, you're going to most likely be detected. These torpedoes, again, I would use these more as a deterrence for people pushing your smoke screen, like battleships, rather than going out and seeking torpedo hits. I mean, 7 kilometers, you can't stealth torp. Only from the concealment of your smoker islands can you really get those off and be effective with those. But yeah, the reaction time, because of the speed with the detectability, you're looking at 7.6 seconds on the receiving end of these torpedoes. You should be able to dodge these. They're not incredibly stealthy. Should give you enough time. You could see them coming. Kind of there in the middle of the pack. I believe the Devonshire has 7.9 reaction time, and that has 61 knots of speed, and they go 8 kilometers. So you can take that again with a little pinch of salt. Yeah, it has the ASW airstrikes, 1 flight. It's pretty shit. Don't rely on it, really, other than just throwing it out there with a hope and a prayer. AA defense, again, is ass. Wouldn't recommend building this thing remotely for AA. You're just not going to get much more improvement out of the anti-aircraft with her. So, again, you're not really relying on your AA here. I would say you're most likely going to rely on your allies or your smoke screen. And again, shooting your AA going off in smoke is going to allow for that kind of free farming AA element that you could potentially get. So, going down to the maneuverability. Okay, now this is something we need to talk about with the maneuverability of the London. Now, the maximum speed of this vessel. Okay, I must have this here on mic flag on, so it's not 33.9 knots. Fuck, I really got to stop doing that. I got to mount all that shit. Max speed for this ship, you are clocking in at 32.3 knots. Again, at least you're breaking 30 knots, but to me, because the hull of the London is just so boxy, like if you look at her, she just looks pretty like girthy, sits high in the water, pretty boxy. The ship it's going to eat shells, so you have to be careful and position your ship again accordingly because of just how boxy the ship is. Turning circle radius is 710 meters with a rudder shift time, I believe, of 6.3. Rudder shift time of 710 meters. Now, the reason it was 6.3 is because I was trying out the rudder shift build, which I wouldn't really recommend. I would definitely recommend propulsion, as you're going to be more of a smoke farmer than you are going to be an open water cruiser. Again, thus hurting your capabilities when your smoke screen is down. Trying to play this ship like a normal cruiser, again, is impacting you a little bit more. The only thing I found by running the rudder shift over that of the propulsion is that when you're not in your smoke screen, you can wiggle your booty around and get all 4 turrets on to bear like a couple seconds faster, and then go back into, I guess, more of an angled position to mitigate damage, rather than when you use the propulsion, it's just going to be starting and stopping. So, but you can rely on the whole, juking method that way as well, than turning out or in. So, personal preference, I would say propulsion mod is going to be your best friend. Going down finally to the concealment, which is your standard detectability of the ship is 11.7 kilometers. And I already talked about that your smoke screen firing penalty is 6.8 kilometers. So you have to be cautious and have situational awareness when deploying your smoke screen and when opening up with your main artillery. So final thoughts on the London, guys, after I had my commander back on there. Again, 10.5 is your max stealth build on this thing with the commander skill. So some final thoughts with the London. I don't mind her. I really don't. Every now and then I will queue up in her and fuck around with her. I think she has a part in the game, especially in Division. She's good, but any smoke farming ship is really going to be dependent on one thing and one thing only: spotting. As long as you have spotting, you have game impact and you can do something. If you're a smoke farming cruiser and you smoke up, but no one's detecting for you, well, that's kind of a waste of smoke, right? It's only allowing the enemy to be concealed and you to be blinded, potentially your team being blinded as well. So it does take some knowledge of game mechanics to make this ship really work, and positioning is going to be extremely key in this ship as well. So enough talking about the London. Let's go ahead and get into the replay, guys. All right, Bohemian Rhapsodies, we are in battle with the HMS London here. Quite an interesting battle. Pretty standard, I would say. Again, the non-bullshit. I don't cherry pick games for you guys all the time. I'm fucking kidding. No, I really don't cherry pick videos. I kind of just, play like 3 or 4 battles, and if I like one, I'm like, fuck it, let's take it. It has to be somewhat presentable. Honestly, I'm not going to show you a massive blowout and it's like, like, it's a great ship, when it's like, well, obviously, like, it didn't showcase anything that I talked about, so why the fuck would I show that video? So again, I don't cherry pick, but I'm also not a complete degenerate, an idiot, with picking my videos to show you guys and do commentary over some rather subpar commentary, I might add. But again, I mean, you guys like hearing people talk about the certain ship, what makes a ship good, tips and tricks, and kind of how to take her out on the high seas. So, but some initial stuff to talk about with the game. Obviously, we're going to set flank. We're going to be supporting my destroyer, and I can do that in this ship as I have a smoke screen, and I can theoretically get closer up into the battle to support my DD and kind of be that deterrence for enemy destroyers trying to cap or take or engage my destroyer as well. Now you can see a tactic I'm doing here. This is something I like to do on smoke cruisers that are a little bit more clumsy. Once I know, as you see the circle radiuses on my minimap, which you can enable by the little gear icons up in the top right of your minimap, once that circle is going towards their end of like the radius of the circle, once their end of the capture point towards their team, once my concealment circle is overlapping that, I start going about a quarter speed, so that the second I get detected on an enemy ship that pops up within shooting distance of my main guns, I then will go ahead and pop my smoke screen, and I'll go about a quarter speed in her to kind of slowly creep it up. Now, one thing you don't want to do is already remain stopped, because when smoke screens disperse, they do that puff of smoke, and it's a small little radius, and it's easier to pinpoint exactly where your ship is. Now, if you haven't noticed, the London is a rather girthy bitch, and it would be easy to identify, or easier to identify, where to blind fire in a smoke screen, especially if you do the whole spotter plane, above look, to go ahead and track your shell tracers from the smoke screen. So you always want to be moving in your smoke screen, and you always want to make sure that you have 2 or 3 puffs of a line of smoke so that you can have some room to play in, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So obviously some very poor marksmanship here early on in the game. Again, this is me. I don't want to fully blame the ship here. I'm obviously not feeling it right now in regards of where to aim, where to lead, or whatnot. But at the same time, these shells are floaty, like I mentioned in the first half of this review, so you're going to have to factor that in accordingly. Also love how my Gaeta goes flying in there to blow his torpedo load at the smoke screen, and fails to mention, or fails to queue up his hydroacoustic search, which would easily spot the Nicholas. Well done. I'm assuming he doesn't understand that he could do that with the hydroacoustic search yet. Could be a newer player, don't know, but let's just go with he's learning. So, but anyways, we're going to start unleashing AP on the Abruzzi, and you can see right there. Okay, those shells clearly landed on the Abruzzi's massive, low-armored citadel, and I got nothing but penetration, like a 1 penetration and 2 overpens, and I started getting some ricochets. That is the armor piercing for you guys at your max range, so do not do it. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I know what I'm talking about with this, and you're not going to want to use AP at long ranges. You're going to want to stick with the HE, that high explosive. It's just going to be more consistent damage. And again, that should be nothing new to players in this game. It's going to allow you not only to do damage over time, but that splash damage, and again, it's going to have a chance to light fires, which is what we want. We want ships to go ahead and burn their damage control parties to allow our destroyer then to go ahead and hit them with torpedoes to have them flood out, that sort of stuff. It's not a min-max, right? And that is what I recommend. Also, I have to say, this is a hilarious engagement between our Gaeta and the enemy Nicholas. Hysterical. And when I save his ass, Gaeta writes in team chat trying to chirp the enemy Nicholas, which I thought was hysterical. I was pretty much crying at this point. The people get so invested in this game and talk shit. It's just so funny. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. To a certain extent. Obviously, when it gets like really, really nasty and heated, obviously like dial it back a bit. But fuck, that was too funny for me. Basically chirping the guy in our chat, so the guy didn't even see it. But anyways, going back to the game, kind of trying to stay focused here. Stay focused, Waffle. When your smoke screen is down, you're definitely at your most vulnerable. That is nothing new. You can tell by the way you handle, again, being up on the larger side. The ship definitely will eat chunks and chunks and chunks of damage. I don't think I show an example of that in this game, but I could be wrong. There might be a battleship salvo that gets me. I'm not 100% sure because I played so many damn games in the London to try to, get a feel for it. Because I also test it out. I test various builds for you guys. I don't know if you know that. That's why a lot of my videos, like I have to, I forget, the rudder shift is different. Because last game I played, I had a rudder shift on her and that sort of stuff. So I test various things to try to get a more well-rounded opinion for you guys, so that when it comes time to pick her up, you guys, hey, I like her a lot. Let's go with the build he's doing. It's the most optimal build that I think you can get the most consistent results out of that, said build. So that's what I do. I try to stick to that. I'm not just one of those guys that's like, oh, this is the build and I just play nothing but this build and the other builds they can suck my cock because I have a superior complex. No, I know a lot of people say that and do that as content creators, and I'm trying not to do that because I think it's doing a disservice to you as the player base to not have more of a well-rounded opinion. Just like in the future, I will actually have other people on my channel and get various other opinions to talk about and discuss certain tech trees, builds, dark horse ships, that sort of stuff. So definitely stay tuned. This week's going to be a little bit busy for me, but eventually as we progress, we will get more and more content out for you guys to hopefully grow the channel and the viewership, yada, yada, yada. So again, we smoke up again, and we're attempting to shoot enemy battleships, which is always fun. Griefing them is great. Again, you don't like being on the receiving end of HE smoke farming, but when you're in the smoke farming, it's a blast. Obviously, our HE kind of failed us here shooting at the Brigantine that range. All we needed was a fire as he used his damage cool, and it kind of let us down. Which is crazy because you do have, like, what, a 17% fire chance on this ship, if I'm not mistaken. No, a 15% fire chance. The Devonshire gets 17. I probably fucked that up later on in the video. Sorry. 15% fire chance. With that demolition expert and signal flags, I believe you can get it up to 17. So that's kind of the difference there. Regardless, you could get her up to 17 or 16% fire chance depending on signal flags and demolition expert, which again, I recommend because the HE is extremely strong. Now, there is something, a little bit of an argument to be made about that, like, heavy HE sap skill. I mean, I don't think it's worth trading your concealment over to take, though I can see a viability for it, because if you solely rely on your smoke screen, that means also in the third slot, you're taking that, like, smoke modification mod 1. If you use that coupled with your heavy HE, heavy sep, that counteracts your concealment kind of nerf you're getting to your ship, and fully puts you into an HE spamming role, which you already are, but it thus like further emphasizes that HE spamming role. And I mean, at that point, you're shooting HE 90% of the time, 99% of the time you're shooting HE. So if that is something you could do for sure, but just know it's going to nerf your concealment even more, that it's like, okay, I really am gonna, like, I went from solely relying on my smoke screen to smoke screen is life. You know what I mean? So here's a good example of what AP can do if you're at the right, distance. There you go. Again, an overpen, and I only landed, what, 3 shells? And that's something you're going to notice with this ship too. I should have talked about that. The dispersion, like, accuracy of the ship feels rather, like, there we go. Fucking rights. Feels rather lackluster as I just go ahead and smoke the guy with 2-3 citadels. Again, he's flat broadside. What do you expect? Okay. But you saw how the first salvo, I only landed 3 shells, and finally I got a double citadel out of like 4 or 5 shell hits. It's really, you're flipping a coin and tossing it up a lot, whether or not you're going to land, your shells are going to land where they want to land. I have noticed that the aiming system is just a requirement for me at this point with this ship. There are some ships that we've talked about. I mean, I know they're mostly DDs, but there are some cruisers that you can get away with not running that. To me, though, it's the fucking no-brainer. You're going to want to land shells because the more shells you miss on the target means the less amount of damage you're going to be doing, which means the less amount of game impact you're going to have. So it's just a trickle effect. So you're definitely going to want to invest in the aiming systems, guys. We're doing good right now. I mean, we're at 74,000 damage with I think 3 kills, something like that. Not bad. Not bad. I feel pretty good about my game so far. And we're just going to go ahead and continue this trend up with B. I mean, realistically, the only big danger of my ship, at least how I feel, is the Brigantine up there, the battleship. As long as I know where he's at, which is fine, we're golden. We're good. We're all good. So my main thought process is like, hey, I got to go eliminate that guy. Obviously, this Gallant shows up, so we're going to go ahead and see if we can do some damage to him. Again, any amount of damage dealt to a DD is less damage that your ally DDs has to do to the enemy DD when theoretically they're trading. That's why no matter what ship you're in, going after a DD doing even microscopic amount of damage is worth it, because it's all about trades. That's what these games are. Wargaming titles are all about how much trading can I do. Trade. And in my opinion, any amount of damage to a DD is always a good trade. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, because if you in return get nuked, I mean, I don't know if that's a good trade. You know what I'm saying? So please be smart. I mean, I'm talking about any damage dealt to them. I mean, again, if you're doing 3,000 damage to a DD, but in return you get dev struck, I don't think that was a good trade. Okay? Don't read too much in between the lines of what I'm saying. Just understand the overall concept of what I'm trying to say. So, again, we smoke up here. I believe we are right outside our cap, supporting our DDs again, being that visual deterrence, and we're just going to be HE farming the enemy battleship. So, I believe he does take a torpedo from our Akatsuki, which is great. But then again, he decides to open water gunboat. Maybe he was trying to have him turn out to take a torpedo or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. I just think that probably wasn't the best play there, as, a DD that is alive is a DD that has more game impact than a DD that is now dead. But our HE doesn't fail us this time. We have a good shot landing right there on the superstructure with plus that 34 millimeters of penetration. That is more than enough there on the superstructure, and we take him down for 4 kills, which is fucking great. Now we're just going to go in and support our other DD here, because I believe there's just a Gallant and that Leipzig that are left. Which I'm going to have my gun or my turrets located on the left, because I know the Gallant obviously is in that C cap because it is being flipped currently. So that would be the smart decision to do. I don't know where the Leipzig is, what he was doing. Oh, there he is. He decides to run to the end of the map and be Ferda, because I don't know. Like, dude, you're already going to lose the game, and you're not going to have a chance to win if you're just going to run away. But we do get a good salvo here on the Gallant, which is nice. This was for the Kraken here. If I would have landed, I think, a couple more shells, I might have got her, but I think we land like, what, 3? Or no, we land 2. So if I landed 1 more, we would have gotten the Kraken. So again, showcasing the lack of consistency and accuracy of the London. It's just going to happen. And again, every 14 seconds, it is a lengthier reload to wait for that. But again, with the HE, it's potent, it's strong. You should be able to get a lot out of her. Now here's a poor decision by me. Again, I highlight my poor decisions too. Obviously the Leipzig's running away. Obviously he's not presenting the right angle, and I have AP loaded. I'm only going to be raking in 128 millimeters of penetration, which again could be enough, but again, when he angles ever so slightly, it changes the effective values of the armor. So you could be 128, but the second you start angling away, your effective armor, in millimeters goes up. It goes up, right? So again, I know I don't have the near amount of penetration or the range to deal with the Leipzig here. The better bet, or the best bet, would have just been to, or the better choice, sorry, would have just been to load the HE. And that's kind of the one sole tip I can tell you guys is, when in doubt, you're going to be, and this is universal, just shoot HE. But it definitely gets further emphasized with the London and takes it to the next level, just because the penetration is so lackluster, guys. So as the video is winding down here, as our, enemy Leipzig's just running away and deciding not to fight, which is always a blast to play against. Some final tips I have with the London. Number one is position. You're going to want to position your ship right, especially as a heavy smoke farmer with 6.8 kilometer detection. Number two, HE. HE, about 70-30, I would shoot HE over AP. Number three, AP, I would only shoot around your base detection value and lower. Well, base being upgraded is around 10.5 as your detection. Once you're within 10.5 of an enemy target or lower, go ahead and switch to the armor piercing if they're presenting a broadside and be punished. Other than destroyer, stick with the HE all the time. And then lastly, you saw with my little smoke screen thing, as a heavy cruiser, especially early game, that means there's a lot of battleship players that's available and more guns that can be targeted on you. Just creep up to the cap with about quarter speed, and then when you're within range of something, go ahead and pop your smoke screen and crawl into it, making 2 to 3 to 4 puffs rather than just one puff stationary. So much easier to predict where you're going to be if you have one puff rather than having multiple puffs as a line of smoke, right? I think, and this is the question that everyone's going to be asking, and it's not really for me to decide, but at least in my opinion, is the London worth it? Well, for 2,500 doubloons, absolutely. I mean, why would you not? I believe this ship's going for, what, $30? A little bit over $30 as a tier 6 cruiser premium. I mean, the store, I believe you could pick her up in the store. I should do that. I should look up to see if you could grab her. I'm pretty sure you could grab her. But the reason why you don't see her played a whole lot, I think, is because she's kind of underwhelming in the aspect of what you're looking for in a heavy cruiser, which is that heavy hard-hitting AP. You're mainly going to be getting the good damage with the HE. That's kind of what you're going to be looking for. So, but anyways, guys, hopefully this video can sway your opinion either to be pro-London or anti-London, and whether to pick her up. I think she's worth it, but then again, the decision is ultimately up to you. So hopefully this video helps you guys. Anyways, have a good one, guys, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out.